They were driving through the mountains of West Virginia, heading back from a weekend camping trip. The GPS had lost its signal miles ago, and the last gas station they'd passed looked like a skeleton windows cracked, the sign flickering in and out. Still, Jake laughed it off. "We'll hit the main highway soon," he said, tapping the steering wheel with a confident rhythm. "This shortcut's supposed to save us 30 minutes. Melissa wasn't so sure. The road had narrowed into a winding, cracked strip of asphalt, completely surrounded by a dense, dark forest. There were no lights, no houses, not even the faint hum of power line. Just trees that pressed closer and closer, their branches like gnarled fingers, as though trying to swallow the car whole. Then, the pavement vanished, turning to gravel. "Jake," Melissa said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. "This doesn't look right." He slowed down, but it was too late. The road split in two. The left path sloped downhill into even deeper, darker woods, while the right curved upward toward a fog-covered ridge. There were no signs, no landmarks to guide them. Just two paths into the unknown. "Let's go right," Jake decided, his voice still trying to project confidence. "It's higher ground. We'll probably get service up there." But as soon as they turned, the car's headlights flickered once, twice, and went out completely, plunging them into absolute darkness. The silence that followed was suffocating, heavy. Jake cursed under his breath and twisted the key again and again. Nothing. The engine was dead. They sat there in the dark for a long moment, the only sound their own ragged breathing. Melissa grabbed her phone. The screen's glow a tiny island of light in the overwhelming black. No signal. The faint light, however, was just enough to show the white fog curling outside the windshield like smoke. I think I saw something move," she whispered, her voice trembling. Jake turned his head sharply. He saw it too. The fog rippled, but there was no wind. Then, slowly, a shape began to emerge from the mist. At first, it just looked like a person standing in the middle of the road. But as the fog shifted and thinned, it became horrifyingly clear that it wasn't standing quite right. Its head was tilted too far to one side, its shoulders bent at an unnatural, broken angle. "Hey!" Jake shouted, trying to sound brave, but his voice cracked with fear. The figure didn't respond. It just stood there until it suddenly dropped to the ground and began crawling toward the car with a horrifying, jerky motion. Melissa screamed, a raw, piercing sound that filled the small car. Jake fumbled for the ignition, his hands shaking. The engine sputtered one sound, then roared to life. He slammed on the gas, swerving violently around the crawling figure. Something heavy hit the side of the car with a sickening thud. "Jake, what was that?" Melissa cried out, her eyes wide with terror. "I don't know. I don't care. We're getting out of here." The headlights flickered back on, suddenly illuminating a sign they hadn't noticed before, an old, rusted road marker, half buried in weeds. 2 words were barely visible through the decay. "No exit." For what felt like hours, they drove through the winding mountain roads. Every turn looked the same menacing trees, the same sharp bends, the same sudden dips in the road. It was a dizzying, disorienting nightmare. Then Melissa gasped, pointing a shaking finger ahead. "Jake, stop." Up ahead, through the mist, the same rusted sign appeared, "No exit." The same broken branches lay scattered on the ground. The same twisted tree stood sentinel on the right. "We've been here before," she whispered, her voice hollow with dread. Jake gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. "No, that's impossible. We haven't." But when he glanced in the rearview mirror, he froze. The fog that had been chasing them was gone, replaced by a darkness so thick and absolute it looked alive. And just before the light from their taillights was swallowed completely, he saw movement. Something was following them. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, they spotted a faint light flickering between the trees. A lantern, maybe. Desperate, Jake turned onto a narrow dirt path and followed it until they reached an old, dilapidated cabin. It looked deserted, with boards nailed over the windows and a porch that was half collapsed. But a thin trail of smoke rose from the chimney. "Maybe someone's here," Melissa said, a flicker of hope in her voice. Jake hesitated, a deep unease settling in his stomach. But he got out and slowly approached the door. Before he could knock, it creaked open on its own. Inside, the cabin smelled of decay and damp wood. Old, faded photographs hung on the walls, black, canned-white portraits of families, their faces all blurred and scratched out, as if trying to erase them from history. Melissa stepped inside and pointed to a table in the center of the room. A map was spread across it, a hand-drawn, crude version of the local roads. In the middle, circled in red ink, were the words, "The Road That Shouldn't Exist," and at the bottom, scrawled in a shaky, desperate handwriting, was a chilling message. "Once you find it, you never leave it." As they read those final words, the door slammed shut behind them with a deafening crash. They ran back outside in a blind panic, but the car was gone. In its place were only tire tracks leading deeper into the woodsand, the faint, ghostly echo of an engine somewhere far away. They followed the sound, calling out, stumbling through tangled branches and cold mud, until they reached a small clearing. There, in the middle of it, was their car headlights, still on, cutting through the darkness. But there was something terribly wrong. Inside, visible through the windshield, they saw two figures, Jake and Melissa, both sitting perfectly motionless in the front seats, both with eyes wide open in a silent scream, both covered in blood. The real Jake screamed, a guttural sound of pure horror. Melissa grabbed his arm and ran. But the forest around them began to twist and contort, trees bending into impossible shapes, roots shifting and breaking the ground under their feet. The ground gave way, and they fell into a deep, endless darkness. When Jake woke up, it was morning. The sun filtered weakly through the trees. The car was gone. So was Melissa. He wandered for hours, lost and in shock, until he stumbled onto a main highway. A truck driver pulled over and offered him a ride. "Where'd you come from, son?" the driver asked, looking at Jake's disheveled state. Jake pointed a shaky finger behind him. "There's an old dirt road back there. Leads through the forest." The driver's face went pale. "There ain't no road back there," he said, his voice low and serious. "That whole area's been sealed off since '78. A big landslide took it out. Killed a young couple on their way back from a camping trip." Jake's hands began to shake uncontrollably. He had to ask, what were their names? The driver frowned, thinking for a moment. "Can't say for sure. Jake and Melissa, I think, to this day." Local hikers and hunters claim to see headlights deep in those woods lights that appear out of nowhere and vanish the moment you get too close. So if you ever find yourself driving through those mountains and your GPS tells you to take a shortcut down an unmarked road, just keep driving. Don't turn. Some roads aren't meant to be found, and those who find them are never seen again. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more chilling tales from the dark. Stay safe out there.